The storm didn't just knock out the power, it knocked on my door. At midnight, rain hammering the city like it was trying to erase it. I opened my apartment to find my boss standing there, soaked, shivering, eyes wide with a fear I had never seen in the woman who ruled boardrooms without blinking. Her car was flooded, hotels were full, phones were dead. And for the first time since I'd known her, she wasn't in control. She stepped inside, water dripping onto my worn carpet. And before I could say, "Yes, ma'am," or, "Of course, Miss Carter," she looked straight at me and said softly, almost pleading, "Don't call me your boss tonight." In that moment, with thunder cracking above us and the door closing behind her, I felt something shift. Like the storm outside was nothing compared to the one that had just started between us. I had worked under her for 3 years, long enough to memorize her sharp walk, her clipped emails, the way silence followed her into meetings. She was respected, feared, admired, but standing in my small apartment, wrapped in a borrowed towel, she looked human in a way I had never imagined. We laughed awkwardly at the absurdity of it. All her designer heels lined up next to my old sneakers, her phone dead on my kitchen counter. The city plunged into darkness. When I offered her coffee made on a gas stove, she smiled like it was a luxury. The storm forced us into conversation, not the polite work kind, but the kind that slips out when defenses are tired. She spoke about growing up poor, about working twice as hard just to be taken seriously, about how lonely success can feel when everyone only sees the title before they see the person. I listened, really listened. And for the first time she wasn't talking. Down from above, she was sitting across from me, knees tucked in, voice unguarded. As the night stretched on, the storm refused to calm, and neither did the emotions filling the room. At one point, when the thunder shook the windows, she reached out without thinking and grabbed my hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she exhaled and said, "I'm always strong. I don't know how to stop." I told her she didn't have to stop forever. Just for tonight. We talked about regrets, about paths not taken, about how easy it is to hide behind roles until you forget who you are without them. When the couch became her bed and I insisted on taking the floor, she laughed and said I was impossible. Before turning off the lamp, she looked at me with a seriousness that made my chest tighten. "Tomorrow," she said, "everything goes back to normal." But the way she said it sounded more like a question than a fact. I lay awake listening to the rain, knowing that when morning came, nothing inside me would ever be normal again. The power came back at dawn, but the real shock came with her next words. She stood by the window, sunlight breaking through the clouds, and said, "I don't want to pretend last night didn't matter." That was the hook that held me, because it wasn't a confession or a promise. It was a risk. We both knew the challenges ahead: office gossip, power imbalance, the fear of losing everything we'd built. She didn't ask me to choose her, and I didn't ask her to change her life. Instead, we chose honesty. She admitted she had feelings she'd buried under deadlines and expectations. I admitted I had admired her from afar, but never allowed myself to imagine more. We agreed to move carefully, to respect boundaries, to do the hard work rather than chase a fantasy born from a stormy night. The real test came weeks later, when rumors began to stir, and the easy path would have been to step away. She called me into her office, door closed, the familiar power dynamic looming again. For a moment I thought she was ending it. Instead, she said she was stepping back from being my direct supervisor, willing to face questions and consequences, because some things are worth doing right. It wasn't dramatic or romantic in the way movies promise. It was responsible, mature and deeply brave. Our connection didn't explode into something reckless. It grew slowly, built on respect, and the memory of a night when 2 people saw each other without titles. Months later, another storm hit the city, but this time we watched it from the same window. Coffee mugs warm in our hands, no fear in the room. She laughed and said, "Funny how storms reveal what we've been hiding." I realized then that the inspiring part of our story wasn't romance. It was the courage to be human, to choose integrity, and to let someone see you without armor. Titles fade, power shifts, storms pass, but the nights that teach you who you really are stay with you forever.